Hello students, my name is Dr. Alice Mani. I will be imparting lessons on business law, course 306. I am the resource person for Mahatma Gandhi National Council of Rural Education. I will be imparting lessons on business law. This is part of the BBA Rural Management course. This course is divided into 4 units. You will have 16 modules covering the syllabus. The 4 modules will be: the first module is an introductory chapter. Second chapter is various acts. The third is Sale of Goods Act. And the fourth and last chapter is Consumer Protection Act 2019. We will begin with the first unit, which is Introduction to Business Law and the Indian Contract Act. This unit will be covered in 3 modules. The first module will look at the introduction to law, business law, and the sources of business law. The second module will cover 10 essential elements of a valid contract. And the third and last module will cover the types of contract. I have structured this lesson in the following way. This lesson will be an introduction to business law. This lesson will cover 3 broad areas. First, the introduction to what is law and business law. Second, the scope of business law. And third, the sources of business law. At the end of this lesson, you will be able to understand the meaning and importance of law and business law. Second, you will get insights into the scope of business law. And third, the sources of business law. Before I begin, I want to do a small exercise. When I talk about law, what comes to your mind? Is that rules and regulations, fines and penalties, law and order? What comes to your mind? Why is it important to have law? Don't you know and agree with me that we enjoy safe living, consumer rights, employee rights, clean environment, the courts, the legal system in our country, the police and judiciary, traffic rules, norms for using social media, safe online transactions, digital banking, mobile banking, all because of the laws in our country. Take 5 minutes and write down whatever comes to your mind when you hear the term law. Do you like to have rules and regulations or not? Some we don't like. I know it for sure. Let me make it easy for you. When you write down the points about law, the common answers can be: it is a rule established by authority or custom. It regulates the behavior of the community. We establish our rights through law, etc. You all will agree with me that in our day-to-day lives, rules are an absolute necessity. Without rules, governance of the country becomes impossible, and people's liberty will not be respected. The word law has been derived from the Teutonic word lag, which means definite. Thus, law can be defined as a definite rule of conduct and followed in human relations. Laws are applicable equally to all people living in a country, locality, or state. It is interesting to know who makes laws. How are laws made? Why do you think that we need law? We come across rules and regulations in our day-to-day lives. If you purchase a mobile phone or laptop from a shop, you are protected by the Consumer Protection Act. This law will give you the following rights, that are: the purchased item is of acceptable quality, suitable for the purpose you purchased it, same as the sample item demonstrated, got a clear title, item will satisfy the guarantee and warranty offered, item is free from any hidden security issues, etc. Imagine any of these rights are not fulfilled as per your satisfaction. Now we have remedies as per the Consumer Protection Act. The customer can either ask for a repair or replacement of the item or refund of money. The seller cannot refuse to provide a remedy as per the Consumer Protection Act. Thus, law sets the standards for acceptable behavior in society. Secondly, law provides access to justice. Thirdly, law keeps everyone safe. Gone are the days when people were exploited and made to suffer silently. In the past, people were not aware of their rights. Can you imagine the traffic without the traffic rules and penalties for violation? Everyone deserves an environment where they feel safe and protected. A victim may find law and order as a rescue when his best efforts are not helping him to solve the problem. As last resort, he can approach the courts. As you all know, we have three types of courts in India, that are district courts, high courts, and Supreme Court. Fourthly, laws are important to maintain law and order in the society. Fifthly, law protects human rights. Again, laws are important for social progress. Law affects every aspect of our lives from birth to death, sometimes even after death also. Human societies are highly complex structures. Without a social order, it is difficult to maintain law and order in the society. We all agree that social order is a prerequisite for every society. Moreover, law has helped in social transformation. For example, for bringing equal rights in terms of employment, education, and in all aspects of our lives without any difference as to caste, religion, social background, etc. Social transformation has helped us to enjoy the technological changes, eradication of poverty, social upliftment, equal status, justice and equality, right to education, right to follow the religion of our choice, right to employment, and all that we enjoy today. The right to do business or profession, to work and earn a living, to acquire assets, etc. This list is endless. So that is the importance of law. Now, let us see what is business law. Business law consists of laws relating to commerce, business, and trade. So, business law gives the rights and obligations of people entering into business transactions. It can be individuals, partnership firms, Hindu undivided families, that is HUF, association of persons, or also called as AOP, joint stock companies, trusts, etc. Knowledge of business law is essential for entering into business to avoid conflicts and to protect their rights. Business law plays a vital role in regulating business practices in any country. Business law deals with compensation issues, rights of shareholders, protecting the investments, business formation, business ethics, controlling competition, misleading advertisements, consumer rights, purchase of property, sell property, any sort of business transactions with people, liquidation process of companies, partnership firms, protecting environment, rules governing Hindu undivided families or HUF, protecting partners' rights and investments in partnership firms, rights of people with disabilities, avoiding gender bias at workplace, right to compensation, and much more. Now, let us discuss the scope of business law. Scope of business law is very vast and covers all aspects of commercial transactions. Business law includes the Indian Contract Act 1872, Limited Liability Partnership Act 2008, Sale of Goods Act 1930, Consumer Protection Act 2019, Banking Regulation Act 1949, Environment Protection Act 1986, Patents Act 2005, Companies Amendment Bill 2020, the Banking Regulation Amendment Bill 2020, the National Institutes of Food Technology, Entrepreneurship and Management Act 2021, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Amendment Act 2020, the Employee Compensation Amendment Act 2017, the Payment of Wages Amendment Act 2017, the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act 2016, the Black Money Act 2015, etc. Thus, the scope of business law touches all areas of our daily lives. Now, let me give you the second exercise. You take 5 minutes of your time and note down the functions of business law. Let me guess the common answers. Business law encompasses all laws to start and run the business. Moreover, it protects the rights of shareholders, exercises payment of tax, protects the intellectual property rights of businesses, helps in settling disputes, protects consumers' rights, provides standards and benchmarks, setting safety and operational standards, reduces the chance of frauds, and the fear of consequences will force everyone to follow business law. Can we sum up this in 2 points as the functions of business law as regulation of commercial entities and regulation of commercial transactions? This sums up all the points you might have noted down when I had asked you to write as an activity. Now, let me look at the sources of business law. What do you mean by sources of business law? It is nothing but the origin, place, cause, resource or institution from which business law is derived and got its validity. The sources of business law may differ from country to country on the basis of social, political, economic, cultural, religious and geographic situation and political environment of the country. Most of the Indian mercantile law is derived from the English mercantile law because India was a British colony for hundreds of years. British rulers enacted a number of laws, rules and regulations in India. Thus, Indian mercantile law is largely based upon the British mercantile law. Prior to the enactment of the various acts constituting mercantile law, personal laws of a country were in practice. For example, rights of Hindus were governed by Hindu law and that of Muslims by Mohammedan law. In case of disputes related to other communities, other than Hindus and Muslims, courts applied the principles of English law. Similarly, where laws and usage of Hindus and Muslims being silent on any point, the principles of English law were applied. The mercantile law in India had developed with the enactment of the Indian Contract Act 1872. Since then, numerous laws have been enacted in India to regulate commercial transactions. For example, Sale of Goods Act 1930, Patents Act 1970, the Environment Protection Act 1986 and Foreign Exchange Regulation Act 1973 to name a few acts. Thus, to ascertain the sources of Indian mercantile law, we have to trace the sources of English mercantile law. The sources of English mercantile law are the common law, equity, the law merchants, the statute law and case laws. In this context, we can say that sources of business law in India also can be summed up in 5 points. They are the common law, equity, the law merchant, the statute law and case laws. Let us explain these points in detail. What is common law in business law? Common laws are derived from customs and precedents. It originated with the legal reforms of King Henry II in the 12th century. The customs and usages which evolved over the years were adopted as the unwritten laws by the English community. Examples are the offense of murder, theft, etc. It is called common because it applies equally across the whole country. These laws were common and applicable in the entire United Kingdom, and they became legal principles of law. These laws were traditional, unwritten laws developed in English courts during the period beginning with the 13th century and extending up to 18th century, and brought to our country through the British rulers of India at that time. Thus, in India, we got these traditional laws followed in England through the British rulers. The second source of business law is equity. Sometimes the suitors found that the common law is very rigid. The only remedy under the common law was monetary compensation. Then the dissatisfied suitors started complaining to the king. Then the king will appoint a chancellor to hear the parties and to give a verdict. The chancellors began to sit as a separate court known as Court of Chancery. The reliefs granted by courts of chancery were known as equitable remedies compared to common law. The third source of business law is the law merchant. The law merchant was developed in the 11th century to protect the foreign traders who were not protected under the local laws. Foreign traders were often subject to confiscations and other types of harassment if they defaulted in any business transaction. The law merchants really spread as the traders went from place to place. For example, initially Britishers came to Calcutta, but later they were spread across the country. The courts set up by law merchants themselves in cities had a uniform law applicable throughout Europe. This was irrespective of differences in national laws followed in different countries and different languages. Initially, it was based primarily on Roman law, but it had some influence on German law as well. This was a necessity for foreign traders to negotiate contracts, trademarks, and various business transactions. We know that Britishers came to our country and started trading in our country. They followed the law merchants followed in their country. This practice was followed by British traders throughout the colonial period. Thus, law merchants have become another source of business law in India. The fourth source of business law is statute. This means the acts of parliament or state legislature. This is the most common, effective and efficient way of bringing about changes in the law in India today also. The authority of parliament is supreme and subject to natural limitations and those laid down by the constitution. Parliament can pass any law it pleases and can nullify the decisions of the courts of law. The statute law, therefore, ranks in priority to common law and equity. In India, the Constitution empowers the Parliament and state legislatures to promulgate law for the guidance or conduct of persons to whom the statute is expressly or by implication made applicable. It is also called enacted law, as it is brought into existence by getting acts passed by the legislative body, that is, either Parliament or the state legislature. To quote a recent example, how Goods and Services Tax was introduced in 2017 through constitutional amendment to replace the indirect tax system in our country. Other acts like Indian Contract Act 1872, Negotiable Instruments Act 1881 are all passed in the Parliament. The fifth and last source of business law in our country is case law. This is based on the decision of judges. The simple rule is that what has been decided in earlier cases will be binding in future similar cases also. Moreover, the decisions of the Supreme Court of India are authoritative for all courts in India. Now, at the end of the lesson, with the given understanding about business law, the points you thought of when I had asked you to pen down the points, draw a flow chart explaining the meaning and importance of laws in our country which you have an impact on our day-to-day lives. Hope you got a good insight on the topics of law, what is business law, scope of business law, and sources of business law. Until we meet again, bye from me. Thank you.